Pay close attention. The news you are about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Yeshua Hawkins. Well, we have violence in the streets. We also have violence militarily. And of course, all of this violence has people on edge, both in the United States and, of course, abroad. But we'd like to warn our viewers that many of the images and videos in this broadcast might be disturbing for some of you. Therefore, viewer discretion is advised. Well, to start us off, Irina Zarutska, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee woman who was seen on CCTV footage getting on a Charlotte light rail train a few weeks ago, was murdered by a man who was battling with mental illness. After she boarded that train and took her seat, footage shows her brutal attack where she was viciously stabbed numerous times before eventually succumbing to her injuries. Well, her family spoke out about the young woman, calling her the glue that held the family together.
Well, the suspect's family says he suffered from schizophrenia and had stopped taking his medication. Now, Irina came to the U.S. in 2023, escaping the conflict in Ukraine. Her uncle said that her desire was to go to veterinarian school. She was working towards that goal until her life came to a tragic end. Now, her uncle, in speaking with ABC News, said that things need to change, and in order for that to occur, our leadership needs to take action to make our community safer. Now, her family is heartbroken as she came to the U.S. to find peace and safety, and yet her life was stolen in a horrific way.
Sad. Well, this next video shows what took place on that tragic day. And again, we want to warn you that the following footage might be disturbing for some viewers.
Katan, just as sad as seeing that event like that unfold is the fact that those on the rail with her didn't do anything to try to intervene in that situation.
Right. You know, people are probably more afraid for their lives than they are, helping a fellow citizen. But there's other things that could be done without really putting themselves in danger. But that is pretty sad to see.
Scared to act. Well, sadly, the violence doesn't end there. In Dallas, Yodanis Cobos Martinez, a Cuban national, is sitting in a Dallas County jail on an immigration hold, being accused of beheading his boss. Now, he was arrested a few blocks away from the crime, his clothes still covered in his victim's blood. The altercation was caught on the property security cameras. Cobos Martinez became angry at his boss at the property he was working at in downtown Dallas because his boss wouldn't speak to him in Spanish.
Well, at some point, he pulled out a machete and began attacking his boss, Chandra Nagamalias, who fled in fear for his life. His family, Mr. Nagamalias' family, came out later to intervene to try to shield him from his attacker. Yet, despite their efforts, Cobos continued to strike him several times, eventually beheading him. Again, this next video footage contains some disturbing images of the incident caught on the property's security camera. Again, your discretion is advised.
September 10th, 2025. Guests checked in. Laundry machines hummed. Families rested. But what began as a normal day would descend into one of the most brutal murders Dallas has ever seen. A husband, a father, a man known for kindness and patience would lose his life in front of the people he loved most. And the man who took it, a co-worker with a violent past, a man who should have never been free. Before the horror, there was Bob, Chundranagamalaya, known by friends and family as Bob. 50 years old, born in India, he came to the United States chasing the same dream as millions before him, the chance at a better life. He worked hard, very hard, managing the downtown Suites Motel, providing for his wife and teenage son. Those who knew Bob said he was gentle, patient, always calm, even in difficult moments. He cared for his guests. He cared for his workers. And most of all, he cared for his family. Bob's story was one of sacrifice, devotion, and the steady grind of building a future. But his life and his dream would end in the most violent of ways.
Well, sadly, Catan, the violence that we're reporting on tonight doesn't end there. Yeah. While hosting his usual question and answer type outdoor gatherings, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck and killed, assassinated in public. Now, this next video shows the tragic event unfold.
It's 5. Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
All right, we're gonna get started, everybody.
10 years.
Counting or not counting gang violence?
Great.
Wow, that's disturbing to see, you know, and the difficulty or the trauma that many people in that audience actually went through as a result of seeing that assassination take place.
Right, and all too, these situations like this are becoming all too common. You can see how quickly the whole audience reacted because the violence like that, you hear a gunshot, everybody is going to run.
That's right. Well, while serving a warrant in York County, Pennsylvania, 3 officers were shot and killed. The suspect then turned the gun on himself. Take a look at this next video.
We still know little about what transpired tonight. The officers were apparently serving a warrant when they started taking fire. It happened in York County, Pennsylvania, about 3 hours from Philadelphia. The governor updating about the violent scene just moments ago. Aaron McLaughlin has the late details. And Aaron, a devastated community there and still so many questions tonight.
Tom, officials say an investigation is underway. The FBI is involved and there's no active threat at this time. Tonight in York County, Pennsylvania, a suspect opened fire, shooting 5 police officers, according to 3 people familiar with the matter, before the shooter, who has yet to be named by officials, died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
I heard gunshots. I'd like to preemptively say that there are many details which at this point we are not prepared to release. I can confirm that there were 5 law enforcement officers who were shot today, 3 fatally.
Sources tell NBC News police had apparently been serving a warrant when the suspect opened fire. The chaos captured on police dispatch.
We have 1 officer down, class 1.
First responders flooded the scene in rural Pennsylvania.
Numerous police and EMS units responded to the scene.
And a shelter in place was ordered at local schools as a precaution and later lifted.
Fortunately, there have been no children injured in any way.
This kind of violence isn't okay. We need to do better as a society.
And the lieutenant governor tonight wrote, "Send prayers to the officers and those involved in the shooting," advising the public to stay away from the area.
Catan, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said it very well, that as a society, we need to do better.
That's right.
Well, Venezuela is displaying a show of military strength in the wake of America's moves to move closer to Venezuela as they say they're targeting cartel activities. Venezuela's show is an act of defiance. Take a look at this next video.
Amidst the heightened tensions with the United States, the Venezuelan army is conducting a 3-day military drill in the Caribbean island of La Orchia, dubbed the Caribbeano 200. The drills showcase the amphibious vessels, fighter jets and warships deployed off the La Orchia, where Venezuela has a military base. And according to the Venezuelan armed forces, about 12 ships, 22 aircraft and 20 small boats from Venezuela's special naval militia are taking part in the drills. The drills feature nighttime displays of military firepower, with Venezuelan forces firing anti-aircraft missiles and also heavy artillery. Footage shared by the Venezuelan Defense Ministry showed the Sukhoi 30 fighter jets and helicopters conducting flyovers, while amphibious tanks made beach landings as the soldiers secured positions along the shoreline.
Yeah, well, we can see that, this type of activity could bring, danger closer to home because Venezuela is just a little bit south of the United States. And, of course, they're wanting to make it clear that they will not be walked over by the American government.
Right, and that seems like a lot of these smaller countries, they have to show that military strength, whatever it is, big or small, just to show you're not going to push us around.
That's right.
Well, Qatar was attacked by Israel. Their target was Hamas leaders meeting there to discuss the latest ceasefire proposal from the White House. An area where schools and embassy buildings for peaceful negotiations was hit, killing a chief negotiator and his son, who were office managers at the location.
The targeted Hamas leaders survived the attack, which they call cowardly, and hold the American government responsible. Suhail al-Hindi, a member of the Hamas political bureau, told Al Jazeera, quote, "The leadership of the movement has survived this cowardly attempt and is now safe and secure," while at the same time stressing that the blood of the leadership is no different from the blood of any Palestinian child, woman, or man sacrificed for their homeland and for this cause.
Well, the crossing between the West Bank and Jordan has been closed by Israeli police until further notice. Now, this came after 2 Israeli soldiers were killed in an attack by the driver of a truck intended to deliver aid to Gaza. Now, the Al-Anbai Bridge border crossing is the main gateway for Palestinians to leave the Israeli-occupied West Bank.
The United States approved a $780 million missile sale to its NATO ally, Poland. The sale is to help strengthen Poland's defense and promote regional stability as the war in Ukraine drags on. And in Puerto Rico, a small number of F-35 stealth jets have landed. This is just another part of a military buildup that's taking place in the region as the U.S. carries out its war on drug cartels. More jets are expected to come later.
Well, more airstrikes by Israel, this time Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, where at least 9 people have been killed. The Houthi-led capital says the Houthi-led capital there, they say they're reporting that multiple journalists and other civilian bystanders are among the dead. Now, besides the deaths, over 100 others have been injured. The Israeli defense minister claims it struck Houthi military camps and a media department. Now, this attack comes just 2 weeks after the group's prime minister was killed by another attack from Israel.
Well, all of this is taking place while the IDF ramps up its bombing campaign against Gaza. Israel's defense minister reports that Gaza is burning. Images of plumes of smoke rising above the city show this to be a true statement. Civilians are doing everything they can to flee the violence, now leaving the northern part of the territory by car, truck, wagon, or on foot. The United Nations reports Israeli forces are committing genocide in the Gaza Strip. Israel is not accepting those claims, arguing the report is distorted.
Well, they are called the Zapad Exercises 2025. Now, the last time Russian-held military drills like this was right before they invaded Ukraine. Now, please watch this report from ABC News Live, which explains where the drills are being held and what involvement the United States is having in the region. Take a look at this video.
Belarusian forces are teaming up with Russian forces to practice how they would repel an attack from Western nations. The exercise is an ominous signal, perhaps, that Vladimir Putin has no intention of ending his war against Ukraine. Our reporter Patrick Revel today was granted rare access to cover war games in the Eastern European country of Belarus and reports now from on the ground.
Russia putting on a display of firepower. Several thousand troops taking part in the exercises called Zapad 2025 that simulate Russia and Belarus fending off a Western attack. Russia is holding the war games in Belarus amid high tension in Eastern Europe, and as Vladimir Putin has escalated the war in Ukraine.
The reason we have been brought here is because Vladimir Putin wants to send a message to the West that he will not be deterred in Ukraine.
Last week, Russian drones for the first time flew into Poland in significant numbers. NATO aircraft scrambling to shoot them down. In response to the Zapad exercises, Poland has closed its border with Belarus and deployed thousands of its own troops. The last time Russia held these exercises, it used them as cover to build up forces for its invasion of Ukraine. Belarus's dictator Alexander Lukashenko allowing the Kremlin to use his country to attack Kyiv. The Kremlin and Belarus this year insist the exercises are purely defensive.
The last time we were in Belarus for military exercises was just before Russia invaded Ukraine, and back then there were no drones involved in those drills. This time they feature very heavily. Since the war in Ukraine, Russia is clearly very interested in showcasing its capabilities in drone warfare.
At the war games also, some unexpected guests. 2 American military attachés invited to observe. Belarus's defense minister welcoming the officers. The only other NATO countries who sent observers, Turkey and Hungary, a Kremlin ally. In recent months, the Trump administration has begun thawing relations with Belarus. Lukashenko, once known as Europe's last dictator, is a key Kremlin ally. The US and Western countries heavily sanctioned his regime over Russia's invasion, but also for his brutal crackdown on mass pro-democracy protests in 2020.
We're really seeing 2 Belaruses here. On this side, the protesters like a street party, and then on this side, the riot police blocking their path.
Lukashenko crushed the protests, arresting thousands. But recently, he's reached out to the Trump administration. Lukashenko has freed some high-profile political prisoners, releasing more than 50 last week. Around the same time, Lukashenko met with Trump's envoy to Belarus, Trump sending a letter wishing Lukashenko happy birthday. In exchange, the US has lifted sanctions on Belarus's national airline and now says it wants to fully normalize relations. The warming relationship with Belarus is potentially an important boost for the Kremlin. It's now been a month since President Trump rolled out the red carpet for Vladimir Putin in Alaska. The Russian president since then has shown no sign of moving towards peace. President Trump has said he now will not impose sanctions on Russia until NATO countries first stop buying Russian oil entirely and sanction China. That's unlikely to happen, and that means that President Putin right now is emboldened.
Well, again, kind of like what we were just talking about with Venezuela, Russia inviting the United States. They sent a couple of their liaisons there to witness their drills, their exercises taking place. It's kind of like Russia saying, hey, guys, come take a look and see what we have.
Well, President Trump speaks frankly about Putin and Zelensky and the war on Ukraine to Fox News in an exclusive interview. Now, we have part of that interview here. Take a look and listen to what President Trump had to say.
I thought the easiest one was going to be Ukraine and Russia.
But the problem is really Vladimir Putin. You talked to him in Alaska.
Yeah, I did.
He has picked up the pace of the bombing.
Look, there's tremendous hatred between him and Zelensky. Tremendous. It's I've seen it before.
But Zelensky says I'm
seen...
coming to the table.
Well,
Zelensky
now he does. No, now
True.
he does. He wasn't coming to the table so quickly. You remember the famous...
So has your patience run out with Putin?
Yeah, it's sort of running out and running out fast, but it does take two to tango. It's amazing. When Putin wants to do it, Zelensky didn't. When Zelensky wanted to do it, Putin did. Now Zelensky wants to, and Putin is a question mark. But we're going to have to come down very, very strong. It's the only one. This is the one, because I've always had a great relationship with Putin. This is the only war that I haven't solved. Now, let's get into Gaza, because that's another one. So those are two that are.
Before you move on, can I ask you,
complex.
what is clamping down on Vladimir Putin?
Well, it'll be hitting very hard with sanctions to banks and having to do with oil and tariffs also. But I've already done it. I've done a lot. Look, India was their biggest customer. I put a 50% tariff on India because they're buying oil from Russia. That's not an easy thing to do. That's a big deal. And it causes a rift with India, you know. And remember this is a Europe problem much more than our problem. The other thing I've done, Brian, and I know how you feel and very strongly about it, and I understand a lot of people do it, a lot of people don't, frankly. But we were spending $350 billion on a war that was across the ocean. Europe was spending $100 billion. It's still a lot of money, but it should have been equalized, at least equalized, or they should have spent more. But I did something. As you know, I went to NATO, great relationship with all of those NATO countries, and I got them to raise from 2% to 5%. And then I got them to pay for anything that all of our costs now are being paid by NATO. So NATO is very, they're rich countries. And they're now paying. We're sending missiles and things to NATO. NATO's paying us, and they're distributing to where they want, which is, in this case, Ukraine.
Well, you could definitely see Trump's frustration in the fact that he can't really get Putin and Zelensky to really agree. That was something he campaigned on before he got into office, was that he was going to put an end to this war pretty quick. And of course, this is kind of like a little bit of a mark, kind of a stain on his record that he can't really make any grounds.
Right. And like the governor in Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro said that we need to do better as a society. We showed a lot of violence here tonight, a lot of military preparations, so it's that type of mentality that is very prevalent in our society, and very few people are presenting a solution. In fact, not many at all present a solution, but it has to be targeting the very character of the individuals that are committing these crimes. And of course, when we teach people that they need to fight or show this defiance or act of force like these other nations, that trickles down to the individuals in our society.
That's right. That's right. Sadly, we've, as a society, contributed to the decline of society because of the lack of moral character education. But of course, that can turn around if we will just start educating people in the peaceful solution.
All right. Well, if you'd like to find out more and what you can do to protect yourself and your family, contact the House of Yahweh. And when you do, don't forget to request your free copy of the monthly newsletter and the Prophetic Word magazine. Here's how.
To contact the House of Yahweh, you can write them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas 79604. You can call them at 1-800-613-9494. You can visit them at any other websites by going to Yahweh.com, YisraelHawkins.com, or Yahweh'sBranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPN News512. You can email the House of Yahweh at info@yahweh.com. And for all calls outside the United States, please dial the number on your screen. And for the most advanced and up-to-date programs to aid you in your study and understanding of the scriptures, you can go to the Yisrael Says and Ask Yisrael programs. You can find those by typing in YisraelSays.com and AskYisrael.com.
Well, don't go anywhere. Up next is another classic message from Yisrael Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
And I'm Katan Alexander.
Thanks for watching.